Hi, I'm Cheryl Connolly, the Global Consumer Trends and Futuring Manager for Ford Motor Company. I've been with Ford for almost 20 years, the last 12 of which I've served as the in-house futurist. When you have a title of futurist, a lot of people think that means that you can predict the future, which of course I can't. In fact, my role predominantly is to remind people when they put together a strategy, when they're doing long-term thinking or planning, we have to be mindful about the things that we can't control or influence. And since we don't have a crystal ball to guide our way through the next 5, 10, 20 years, we rely on trends. We track global consumer trends in 5 different arenas. We look at social, technological, economic, environmental, and political arenas, because we believe that those are the 5 forces that will eventually shape consumer values, their attitudes, their behaviors. When we look at trends, we look at a broad spectrum of trends. Historically, we focus most of our attention on macro trends, and macro trends are the slower moving trends that have global implications. And this is in part because we have such a long lead time when it comes to taking a concept and actually executing it. But we also want to make sure that we're always scanning the horizon for changes, so we also identify and monitor micro trends. Micro trends have a shorter shelf life. They're the ones to watch, and those we do on an annual basis. In fact, we've actually started to publish these in an annual report. For 4 years now, Ford has put together a collection of micro trends that we share publicly. You know, some of the themes that we covered in the very first book in 2013 still resonate in 2016. I think one of the themes that we hear a lot about is trust. Consumers are looking for brands that they can trust in. The very first trend that we identified in our first edition was called Trust is the New Black. And we see kind of a similar iteration of that when we talk this year about embracing heroes, homegrown heroes. Because in the context of 2015, there was much to be concerned about. You know, 2/3 of the people we surveyed globally said that they felt the world was a worse place to live in than it was when they were growing up. And when you consider the events of the last year, this comes as no surprise. You think about fallen icons, corruption in different sporting events. You have the economic crisis throughout Europe, the Syrian refugee crisis, and then escalations in terrorist activity. So these are no surprises. We do believe that society as a whole is quite resilient, and we're really excited about the ways that this is accomplished. This year's collection of trends focus on 3 arenas, stories about inspiration, ingenuity, and identity. Escapism is really an interesting trend when you think about the context of time, how we spend our time, and the fatigue we feel when we don't have enough time to do the things that restore us, you know, emotionally, physically. This is a concept we started talking about years ago. You know, a couple areas that you might see this play out in our 2014 edition of the book. We talked about multitasking being a myth, that people believe that they can give constant partial attention to the world without any detrimental side effects. And closely related to that was this concept of FOMO, the fear of missing out, versus JOMO, the joy of missing out, and how these 2 things are constantly at odds. And even when we recognize that finding time to tune out, settle down, reflect, that quiet space, we know we need it, but it's very hard to accomplish it. And so last year we talked about the escape artist, saying that the act of escapism is a fine art. This year it continues with that theme when we talk about mainstream mindfulness. This mindfulness has been around for centuries, where people use it as a tool to, I guess, come in touch with their sense of spirituality. But science has proven the physical benefits, the benefits that can improve productivity in terms of your health, your well-being. And we're really excited about where that's going. A lot of people might wonder, what does mindfulness have to do with a car company? But when you think about the amount of time people spend in their car, the average daily commute, time is inextricably tied with mobility. And so from a design aesthetic, our interior designers are looking for ways to make the interior of your car a sanctuary on wheels. And that's really important. I mean, at times you need your car to be a productivity capsule, but you also want it to serve as a decompression chamber. And so our technology can be dialed up or dialed down, including features like our Do Not Disturb button on the Sync platform. One of probably the most interesting and still basic of trends is aging population. You know, aging population as a whole is a macro trend. It's a global phenomenon that will affect the quality of life in all parts of the world for all cultures. And as a mobility company, we spend a lot of time thinking about that. You know, having the freedom and independence that comes from owning and operating your own vehicle can really translate into a higher quality of life. And so as someone ages and they face a moment in time where they might have to surrender their car keys, that can be quite a difficult moment in time. And if we can find ways to help people feel confident and stay behind the wheel a little bit longer, I think that we will be that much closer to our goal that Mark Fields, our CEO, often refers to in terms of mobility being a tool to make lives better. I mean, fundamentally, the way that we think about this is that if I'm 83 and I give up my car keys, maybe that's not such a horrible proposition if my life expectancy is 85. But if I think I'm going to live to be 105 or even 125, that's a completely different proposition. And indeed, scientists today have declared that the first person to live to be 150 years of age has already been born. And it may not be me, but maybe my children or my grandchildren. And I hope that if that is their future, I hope that they do have mobility as part of their quality of life.
Do you love Porsches? Well, at TFL Car, we love Porsches, especially the 996, this Porsche, and that is why we have a special new series called Project Porsche. And all of 2016, we're going to be doing some crazy fun stuff with this, including fixing it up and taking it ice racing. So if you want to see the very first episode of Project Porsche, all you have to do is click on me, and we'll take you there.